In 1883, Charles Rusp was hired to mend some fences around the boundaries of a paddock located way out west in outback New South Wales. During this time, he noted a very interesting looking outcrop close to one of the areas he was working at. This outcrop is said to have had the appearance of a broken hill, and, aware of the prosperity in nearby Silverton, it piqued Charles's interest. After examining the outcrop and determining that there could be valuable ore, Charles staked a claim, recruited some workers, and began the process of mining into the outcrop. Word got out concerning this new venture, and eventually Charles was joined by others who staked claims all along the entirety of the outcrop. Eventually, this group of miners came to be the Syndicate of Seven, and later, in 1885, the Broken Hill Proprietary Company, or BHP. Though early findings were rather lackluster, what was eventually discovered in this location was an incredibly rich deposit of silver and lead that stretched for many kilometres under the earth. After this discovery of an ore-rich deposit, Broken Hill was established as a settlement and mines became a common sight around the region. By 1907, Broken Hill was officially recognised as a city, and in 1915 its population peaked at around 35,000 people, with many flocking there to work in the mines or maybe even find their own riches elsewhere in the region. For a time, Broken Hill was the second largest settlement in New South Wales. In 1939, the original BHP mines were closed as the ore bodies started to run dry. The company moved elsewhere, but the mining continued in other areas and is still going strong today. Silver, lead, and zinc are still being mined here, making Broken Hill one of the longest-running mining towns in the world. Now, it must be noted that the mining ventures in this region have come at an incredible cost to the workers' lives and well-being. Around 800 people have died in the mines around Broken Hill since 1883. To recognise and honour those whose lives have been lost over time, the Line of Lode Miners Memorial now stands on what was the original BHP mining site. Here is listed the names, ages, and causes of death of every one of those miners, the youngest being a boy of 12 years of age. Another issue that the people had to contend with were dust storms. They naturally occur in desert regions, and many factors contribute to how often they occur and their severity. But because the mining process would often strip the land of vegetation and leave behind these massive piles of dumped materials, it created an environment for dust storms to become a real issue. In the 1930s, a plan was developed to combat dust storms, resulting in native vegetation being planted in reserves around the city to create a barrier in the hopes of reducing the severity of dust storms in general. Lead contamination is another more recent concern given its prevalence in the ore bodies and how close the town is to the original BHP mines. This is still an issue being investigated, but steps have been taken to make sure that children in particular aren't at risk of being exposed to excess lead. The oldest rocks in this region would have started out their existence as sediments deposited in some kind of water body during the Precambrian period, roughly 1.7 billion years ago. Given the length of time they've existed for, you could imagine how folded and faulted these rock formations are. As a result, those original sediments are mostly now metamorphic rocks, though there are still some sedimentary rocks present and a number of igneous rocks in the form of volcanic intrusions. It is an incredibly fascinating place to explore as a geologist, but a terrible place to have to map and develop a geological history of, speaking from experience. With that said, there is such an abundance of different mineral formations that have been found in this region, some being discovered for the first time here in and around Broken Hill. The ore bodies themselves are also thought to be Precambrian in age and would have likely been deposited in the original sediments by hydrothermal processes from volcanic activity. As metal-rich fluids moved over the sediments, the metals and other minerals would have been deposited as the fluids cooled down rapidly. Over the years, uplift, deformation, weathering, and erosion would have then exposed some of these metals and minerals on the surface or relatively near the surface. They would have then been exposed to air, rainwater, and groundwater, altering some of the ores and minerals. The degree of exposure to the elements is actually a reason why some deposits closer to the surface are rich in a particular ore, while those further underground are rich in others. Now, as always, there's a lot more to all of this than what I have mentioned. Check out my sources if you want the full formation experience. I know it's shunned upon, but I'll include the Wikipedia page on ores because it has a very simple summary of how ores are deposited if you're interested in reading more about that. The original Broken Hill outcrop has long since vanished, and what is left are the remnants of the mines and rocks that have been tossed aside in the pursuit of wealth. But, as a result, Broken Hill has been able to thrive to varying degrees for around 140 years. The city prides itself on its mining history and the unique minerals that have been found here, while also remembering those who have been lost in the pursuit of these discoveries. The rocks in this region have had an incredibly long existence and contain the largest lead, zinc, silver deposit in the world. It is absolutely well worth stopping on by if you are ever this far west in outback New South Wales.